name is Jen Strebs, and I'm a current candidate for the Michigan State House of Representatives in the 41st District. Currently, I'm a chairperson of the Kalamazoo County Commission in my third term there. And I'm running for this seat because the time in front of us is a critical one. And I feel duty-bound to step forward for our community. I'm concerned about the place that our community, our state, and our nation are in. And I'm ready to step forward and fight for us. The things that I've learned at the local level show that we can find solutions to big problems. Those are not out of our reach. If we mobilize together, use our voices, and take the experience that we've created here in our community, we can advance solutions forward. I'm ready to get into that work every day for all of us. You know, I believe that creating policy can have the best intentions, and if it's not well informed by community, and particularly by people who are close to the problems that we're trying to solve, we can create policy that is actually harmful, even when we have the best in mind. And so one of the things that is exciting about the 41st District is that we have a district service office. I will use that office as a way to convene with community. I want community voices involved in the policy process with me intimately. Folks to inform me on education, housing, healthcare policy. I'll look to stakeholders at the state level as well, but this community's voice is going to be critical in advancing forward the practical solutions that we need. I don't know, I think most of us notice that politics right now takes up a lot of space and energy, particularly at the federal level, and it becomes very hard for state and local leaders to connect with community members. So you'll find me still out in the community, connecting with people directly, and using my platforms on social media to communicate and convey what we're working on, why we're working on it, and how people can get involved. Democracy is more than a process of showing up on election days and voting. It is that activism from election day to election day that creates the policy that influences all of our lives. This community needs to know that I'm here to hear them and bring them into that process so we advance the solutions together. So at the county level, I have experience in working to make that much more accessible to the community. So you can see the output of that work if you go to kalamazoocounty.com, and you can look at our entire budget book. That then is a document that's searchable. You can see information that's visualized for the community so they can understand what we're spending on, how that's changed over time, the outcomes that it's creating. I think that it's incumbent in a state level budget, which is an enormous beast of a budget, for the community to have opportunity to get tools and access to what the budget impacts look like. I would love, tools that allow community to sort of visualize their own budget and communicate to legislators, what do your budget priorities look like? Because it's a choice of a lot of trade-offs. There's so many priorities which are important, all need to be addressed, but we have finite resources to do that, right? So thinking through, if we make major increases to, school spending, what does that do to other social service or public safety spending, for example? So I would love to engage the community to help me visualize how we implement the budget. And I think the tools that we put forward at the county level show exactly how I would work to get that done. Probably like many people, I'm really discouraged with the lack of accountability that we have from leadership of all stripes and at all levels right now. And I think when we have leaders that feel like they do not have to be accountable to the voters, we're in a place of serious peril, right? So for me, ethically as a foundation, it is part of who I am, as I've talked about already, to connect and be available and accessible to community members and to hear their voices. This is all the way back to, serving at the county level during the pandemic. We had lots of pushback against public safety measures that were being taken at the time, many critics of those processes. I responded to every single communication from folks who were supportive or in opposition of what they did, because it's important to hear both sides of issues, to let people know that they're heard, and to explain to them why policy decisions are being made. We have to be transparent with what we're doing so that the community can hold us accountable for our decisions. And so I'll never shy away from talking through why I make decisions, who was involved in that policy process with me. And governance is not a process where you can make everybody happy. But this community will know from me that I will always be honest with them. And if they've got concerns, they can bring them to me and hold me accountable for them. We have invested deeply into work on affordable housing. The Homes for All housing millage, supported by our local voters, has allowed us to fund nearly 50% of all of the housing that's been constructed in Kalamazoo County, over 1,800 units of housing at this time. That would not have happened without government investment. We know now that construction costs have been escalating, rental rates are soaring, and wages are not keeping up. So we've been working on a collaboration with, voter-supported funds, philanthropic support, to marshal forward a number of solutions. We have built single-family housing, multi-unit housing, transitional family shelter for unhoused families, supportive services to keep people who are vulnerable within housing. And all of that has been a complex issue where we've got to convene stakeholders together and build creative solutions. I want to take what we've learned here in Kalamazoo, which is a model for the entire state, up to the legislature, and to show them that when we make meaningful and targeted investments and we talk with the community about what the needs are, we can really make real solutions happen. On the other end of it, we have to spur economic development, because we can't just subsidize the cost of housing away without creating conditions where wages really grow and people have good and stable jobs. And that's going to become more and more of a challenge as we're watching technology emerging that has the potential of reshaping the whole way our economy works. So fundamentally, healthcare and housing and the material needs of people have to be a focus of policy, because that's what we're there for, is to make the lives of the people we serve better. We, moved forward really a transformational resolution declaring gun violence as a public health crisis. And this was a collaboration with the city of Kalamazoo as well, and we made major investments. What does it mean when you do that? So violence is an outcome. How do we get to the place where violence occurs? We've got to look upstream to the conditions that set people up to intersect with violence. So there again, we're talking about the same things that I've discussed already: housing, education, healthcare, employment, the lived environment that people are in. Those are upstream conditions. So we built something locally called the Blueprint for Peace. It's another example about how you bring stakeholders together. Hundreds of people involved in crafting that framework as a strategic plan to work out to how we address community violence. One of the outcomes from that is exploring the lack of affordable and accessible childcare in the community. How does that have an impact on violence? When a community can't create conditions where families have stable work because they can't provide childcare for their young ones, they can't show up to shifts, they can't advance themselves economically, or the people who work in childcare make a poverty wage, right? So these are the types of examples that we've got to address if we're going to focus on really preventing violence. When we get to public safety funding, It's critical and it's needed, but that's at the end of the process when violence has already occurred. We're just creating enforcement, right? So we need to support our law enforcement officers. We need to make sure that they are not expected to solve every problem. They're not expected to be social workers and teachers and shelter providers, that they're there to protect the community. But let's create a community in the first place that isn't growing seeds of violence and address it where it starts. Working people have to be at the foundation of all policies that we move forward. One of the reasons that that has happened has been the dismantling of organized labor unions in the U.S. And that's also occurred because of unwieldy corporate influence on our political process. Corporations are buying politicians. I think everybody knows that. So in my race, I will not be taking any corporate donations, no PAC donations from corporations of any kind. Right now, we have big corporations like our utility companies that make large donations to political candidates, and then they go in and influence the regulation that dictates the utility rates that you and I pay, right? So we've got to dismantle that corporate influence. I would change our tax structure to a marginalized tax rate that taxes high corporate profits at a higher rate, that taxes the ultra wealthy at a higher rate, and that translates down into a growing working class because we provide a safety net. Additionally, working people are really pressed by the escalating cost of healthcare. Something foundational is a single-payer healthcare system that I think this country must move forward. I would be a voice in Lansing fighting to get us to single-payer healthcare. I'm not, looking forward to going to Lansing and playing on defense where we're just protecting against some Medicaid cuts that are devastating and hurt people. I want to be there on offense for this community. We don't deserve less Medicaid cuts. We deserve health care for all working people, period, right? That's what we're fighting for. And when we're talking, hedging around the edges about marginal changes that we're going to make for people, that's not going to get it done for anybody. So if we want really meaningful change, we've got to have voices there that are willing to advocate for the needs of working people. I'm a working class person. I will be that champion. What do we do to address it? Again, this is an outcome created by policy decisions that have been made by leaders at the state and federal level for decades that ignore the needs of working people and create undue pressure on them to meet their day-to-day material needs, right? So we've made important advancements at the state level, advancing the minimum wage. We're going to hit to $15 an hour in January 1st of this next year. But as we've finally gotten to a wage of $15 an hour, really a living wage now is $20 to $25, right? So we have to ensure that we're setting policy that's keeping pace with the needs of the community, and we have to build in opportunity for economic development. So in Kalamazoo, that means creating a community that's attractive to new employers, right? We do that by solving social issues locally, by creating the conditions and the infrastructure that's needed for them to develop. So at the state level, we got an important interchange from 131 to the north end of the city. We're primed now because of that for growth. And as we grow, we got to balance how we do that effectively so that we're not contaminating neighborhoods that are nearby, but bringing in businesses and an educated workforce to meet the needs, right? So Kalamazoo has always been a really innovative community on education policy. We have the KRESA regional expansion that we've done on career and tech training. And those are examples that have to be funded and supported, and our public universities also supported, so that we've got the educated workforce bringing in new employers, raising wages for everybody in the community. The needs of the marginalized are the needs of all of us. And it is not acceptable for us to have conditions where anyone is left out of policy considerations. I'm a big fan of the New Deal. I love some FDR and some of the policies that were enacted back in the 40s that pushed back against sweeping poverty. But many of those policies were racially motivated and cut people out of programs and services that we still live with the impacts today. Redlining in our communities. We can see where concentrated poverty occurs in our community are the exact parcels in this community that were redlined during the New Deal, right? So there's a commitment from me in, again, this policy framework that I'll put forward that there's nobody excluded from this process. If we want to address the social ills that face us, then pretending like there's people that shouldn't be at the table, not only is it, a morally bankrupt way to approach the work that we're going to do, but we just won't create the outcomes that we need. So I want this community to know that I hold those as deep values in the way that I approach public service. And I think I've demonstrated that over and over through my work at the county level, both including excluded community members, people who have been underserved in the past, funding community groups that have the trust of community members, rather than just institutionalizing everything, holding all of our resources away, but taking it to the community and letting them know that together we can solve the problem. It has to be pretty apparent to everybody that we are in a moment of great peril. And, there are days that I wake up and I think, will we get through what's in front of us? And there's lots of reasons to feel despair and to feel despondent at the way that power is exerting ourselves right now in the nation. But then I remember that so many other generations before have felt this way too, right? And that we owe it to the people before us, to our ancestors, to our history, to stand up and to fight forward for who we are as a country and how we define who we are. Will we be a place where everybody has the potential to live into their best selves, where everybody has the opportunity to use their voice, to climb an economic ladder, to aspire to their dreams, to have access to real adequate education, to run for office, to serve their community, right? Will this be the country that we hand off to our future generations, or do we let it crumble at the hands of the powerful who think that they can just come in, propagandize all of us, manipulate us, and take our power away? Well, I know for me, every day that I wake up, probably from now until the rest of my life, I will be fighting for a community that stands for democratic values. That's what's at stake. I got a young one. I talk about her a lot when I'm out on the trail. And, it would be just unacceptable to not step forward. And I want everybody out there to recognize that we don't have to give up hope in the face of all the darkness that's around us, right? We have each other. We still have each other. You look to your left and to your right, the people that are there are your neighbors. Let's be engaged, let's vote, let's organize, let's keep going. And when we hit setbacks, let's stand back up and keep going anyway. And we're going to do that until we fulfill the promise that this country is meant to be. Policy is made by the people who show up. And if there's ever been a time for you to step forward and to do that, it's right now, right? Your local government, for example, is extremely accessible to you. The people who are elected in those offices probably live down the block, they work around the corner, and their meetings are held at a public building, maybe a mile away, and it's county government. We're open on Tuesdays, right? Our public meetings. And we have lots of advisory boards and panels and places that you can dig into that process, help inform governance and participate. But I'll tell you, as a local official, I wish I got contacted a lot more by constituents. I want you to contact me. I've articulated here over and over, I want the community involved in how we develop the process, how we write the policy. Most of us are finding out about things at the end of a process when the media is covering it, or maybe when there's a contentious issue that comes up. And the rest of it, we don't hear about because we're busy trying to meet, our day-to-day needs, running kids where they gotta go, getting to jobs. And it's time that we re-engage as a community and recognize that not only can you have an influence, but your influence is so necessary. You can make it better if you participate. Decades back, I can remember out working for candidates, knocking on doors in the neighborhoods, and other folks that I walked block to block with now are now serving in state legislature, or they're judges, or they are business leaders in the community. So particularly if you're a young person right now, engage in that process. Get out and be part of that political activity that's happening. Or if maybe that's not the spot for you, find wherever the place is. Whatever the issue it is that you care about. It's supporting your local library, or volunteering at the local schools, or supporting a candidate and knocking doors. If you get into that process, and if you're older and you never have been, you can still do it right now. There's lots of ways for you to engage. And again, it's all like linking back to whether we feel hopeful about who we are as a society or not. There's so much that wants to separate us from one another. We can sit on phones and stare at those for hours on end. And it's time for us to just set them down. They want you to keep looking at them, set them down, and come out into the community, into real space, and engage. And you find you're going to make a difference. I guess the last thing that I would say is, I encourage the community to get out and vote. August 4th, we have a Democratic primary for the Michigan State House race in the 41st District. I'd be honored to have the support of this community. I'm a proven but pragmatic progressive. I have a record of getting it done in the community. I'm somebody who is here not to just talk about the things that I want to do, but you can look back and see what I've accomplished. Building housing, wiping out medical debt, tackling the opioid epidemic, addressing gun violence, right? Building community together, building an on-time budget that's focused on the values that we espouse, setting diversity, equity, inclusion as a foundation in the way that we laid our budget process forward. Transparency in the way that we interact with the community. If that's the kind of leadership that you'd like to see, then I need you to come out and to support me, and I would be honored if you do. Thank you.